It's an incredible honor to be here today to speak and to participate in this. Thanks to Rick and Charles and everyone here for inviting me. This is a unique gig for me. I don't usually get to just talk. Usually I have to warm up for 2 hours before getting on stage. There's many privileges that come with living a life as a musician, as I have. But one of the best parts of it all has been sitting at a vantage point that has allowed me to study that odd intersection, that magical, elusive spot on the XY continuum where the brain meets the soul. In that place where the goal of maximum consciousness is an essential component of what it takes to be a great musician, that same sense of consciousness is also paradoxically the thing that you find disappearing completely as you get to your best moments on the bandstand. Basically, my job description is professional improviser. And while the word jazz has some utility as a kind of shorthand to invoke a very broad cultural tradition, within the community of musicians that I'm lucky to be a part of, we're mostly unlikely to use that word as having any singular meaning beyond those cultural connotations. To me, the general zone of interest that I inhabit seems like one that has been around forever. I have a feeling there have always been professional improvisers of many kinds in every population throughout all of human history. I often describe jazz as being more like a symptom of a way of life or a process rather than a thing or a destination. We are basically a community of musicians who are looking at musical creativity in the broadest possible sense, embracing the potentials of all genres of personal interest to each of us as individual improvisers in ways that allow us to get to that rare, exalted territory where we can be free as players to illuminate, share, and project a way of being in our music that reflects our best hopes and dreams in life to everyone and anyone who might be interested in hearing. I'm lucky that I get to play a lot. For example, over the past month, I played 30 concerts in 28 different cities all across the states, from Maine to Hawaii. And it's been that way for me for many years, almost 45 years now. Personally speaking, getting to play, to improvise every night, night after night after night, has been the one and only pathway to real musical understanding. The bandstand is not only church for me, it's the R&D center of musical insight. The word improvisation, particularly in music, carries a certain almost mystical quality to it. And music in general does function in a way that is unlike any of our other human experiences. You can't see, touch, smell, or taste music, but when you walk into a club or a concert hall where the performers are really on, regardless of the style or genre that they are playing in, there's no mistaking it. But I'd like to talk about the process from a different angle, a more pragmatic and practical one. Yes, we improvise, but the fact is we are all improvising all the time. We all enter each encounter and our every moment with a general sense of what might happen, but rely heavily on the degree of empathy, knowledge, language, and social skills that we've obtained over the course of our lives to negotiate those moments. In fact, while there are certain mysteries involved in musical improvisation, the closest parallel I make to civilians is the direct analogy between what we do and language itself, and storytelling in particular. As someone who lives daily on the front lines of this transaction, the science of what is actually going on is almost as fascinating to me as the result. How does this actually occur? What is it that is going on when we as improvisers can collectively and individually bend time and open a window into a world that was as unknown to us as performers as to the audience just a few seconds ago? And especially not just on occasion, but night after night after night. To a certain degree, although there is a kind of exalted status given to advanced musicians who are improvisers, on a very basic level, I could say that it has much in common with any job where troubleshooting is a high-value skill. And as much as the priesthood factor may figure into it all, the basic refrigerator repairman type impulses are at least as valuable. When I'm looking for musicians to play with, of course I want folks who are absolutely great, who are fluent, play their instruments really well. But the general human factors of flexibility, maturity, humor, and resilience are actually much more valuable to me over the course of hundreds of nights on the bandstand. And the number one key skill that is required for the gig is being a great listener. I would offer that there is no better laboratory for examining consciousness than what happens through musical improvisation at the highest levels. Over the past 35 years, I've kept a journal of every day of every concert. It's been an ongoing quest for me, not only to understand music, but to do my best to up my batting average by being able to get to my really good stuff as an improviser through study of what is going on around the music, to try to notice and pay attention and even attempt to quantify the things that seem to help me to get to the place that I need to be to play my best. For me, the whole thing is kind of between me and it. The external conditions like the audience, the room, the acoustics weirdly are factors, but in the end, as I look at my notes over all these many years, those things actually have very little to do with my success rate at getting to what I hope to get to. And that exact destination is actually quite hard to describe. I want to be able to really be in the moment at the most micro level possible while essentially being almost removed from it. I often describe my relationship to it all as being a fan of music, a listener first. At my best, I don't even feel like I'm doing anything. I'm just standing there listening. And if there happened to be a guitar player there, which there is, and it happens to be me, what would I like to hear that player do? And then I play that. But the entire process I just described happens in almost real time, less than a millisecond, I would say. This particular form of engagement/detachment requires an odd kind of understanding that I believe can fit some of the same kinds of descriptions that I see some folks chalk up to various metaphysical phenomena. But honestly, I experience it as being able to happen on a much more repeatable basis after years and years of trying to understand and learn about what it takes to be able to get to what I hope to get to musically each and every night. I can't say that I'm 100% there, but by really trying to make sense of the process, I am way more consistently able to really be in the thing, and therefore increase my chances of being able to improvise at the level that I aspire towards. Obviously, being able to invent melodies on the spot at a very high level within a complex harmonic framework is not an easy thing to do. But the fundamentals of understanding how it all works are not at all unlike what it takes to learn a new language and are somewhat quantifiable in almost linguistic terms at this point. And yet, while fluency itself plays a big role in being able to hang with great players, fluency is not enough to be able to generate new material night after night, hundreds of concerts in a row. The issues of consciousness and free will and how they intersect with empathy and shared language and politics and musical imagination itself is on full review nightly. And then there's the X factor, which is actually the truest and deepest currency that we trade in as musicians, soul. The hardest element of all to quantify, and the component most central, actually, to what makes music, music. This is where it gets really interesting, and I'm particularly curious to discuss this aspect of things from a brain perspective with y'all. While I'm a huge proponent of the scientific method, even as applied to something as relatively esoteric and maybe seemingly unrelated as musical improvisation, I also have to acknowledge the huge gaping hole in whatever it is that I can quantify and measure about every aspect of my life as a player with those many other things that I simply have no explanation for. I'm particularly interested in where our discussion may lead us into talking about some of those things. In the sort of postmodern world that we live in, where there seems to be a constant conflation between things of true value with almost anything else, I do my best to maintain a kind of objectivity about things that is formed solely by the currency of music as I've come to understand it. The best musicians I know have a fantastic combination of skills and wisdom that I found I can almost measure in a metric that I have been calling units of human achievement, trademark. For instance, taking into account the amount of years it takes for an orchestral musician to master their instrument, the genius of a composer like Mahler, and the brilliance of a great conductor like Sir Simon Rattle, it's hard to top the concentration of units of human achievement that one can find at a Berlin Philharmonic concert, or a great opera performance, or in a more concentrated dose at an improvised music concert at the highest level. But I have a feeling that the total sum of units of human achievement represented in this room right now may be among the highest total levels I've ever been around. So thanks for inviting me. It's really special for me to be here. Thank you.